Lena Everin didn't believe in omens. She believed in gravity, in the taste of microwave noodles at 2 a.m., in the blue tint of neon when the light bounced off cracked pavement. She believed in good shoes, bad pay, and the safety of predictable routines. That's why the morning fell off from the second her boots hit the street. It had rained the night before, but only on one side of town. District 8, where the climate systems were older than the treaties that governed them, was full of weather like that. Her building's roof leaked every time it rained eastward, and the synth soil on the community balcony smelled like burnt cinnamon afterward. But today, the air carried something else, ionized, a little sharp like the scent before lightning. It prickled her skin even through her jacket, the one with the blue patch on the sleeve from the time she'd spilled instant curry on it. She zipped it up, more from habit than cold, and made her way through the mid-tier market sector. The city of Zal 9 was one of the melting pots of the Orion Reach, a mid-colony hub filled with refugee crafts, merchant caravans, interspecies pubs, and satellite government offices pretending things were under control. Built on the bones of a terraformed asteroid, it spun gently on artificial gravlocks. Its night never quite dark, its day always tinted violet from the nearby dwarf star. Lena worked in supply dispatch. She coordinated small freight runners, often human, who'd come into Zal 9 to load up on cheap spare parts or legal gray market goods. It paid enough. Not well, not poorly. Just enough. But her walk to the tram this morning was different. Off somehow. People stared longer. Not at her. At something behind her, or maybe through her. A few of the Elotes, tall and beetle-backed with shiny green plates, hissed softly as she passed. She thought they were spitting curses in their native tongue, but she couldn't be sure. She didn't speak Elotan. She tried to shake it off. Maybe she'd slept weird. Or maybe this was what burnout felt like, creeping in under the ribs and pooling there. At the corner of 6th and Hydralin, she saw him. An old dragon, or what passed for one in the contemporary galaxy. He stood awkwardly beside a fruit vendor stand, trying to swipe a purchase through a payment receiver with claws too big and gnarled to function on human tech. His wings were folded in, frayed at the edges. His eyes were the washed-out color of faded holograms. The crowd gave him a wide berth, not because he was dangerous, but because he wasn't anymore. He looked frail, the once majestic horns dulled and chipped. No armor on his hide, just worn, wrinkled scales. Even his fire gland, Lena noticed the exhaust duct beneath his jaw, looked shut down, probably rusted, a relic of an older age. "Need a hand?" she asked before her brain caught up to her mouth. The dragon turned slowly, those glassy eyes blinking once. Twice. He didn't speak immediately. Then, in a voice like gravel being slowly scraped over steel, he said, "The reader will not acknowledge my scale signature." Lena glanced down at the bag he was holding, 3 protein apples, a box of preserved Quran herbs, and a bottle of basic hydromineral. Stuff barely worth 10 creds. "It's okay," she said. She held her wrist over the reader and pinged the purchase. Transaction confirmed. A few people stared. A few more shuffled away. "You shouldn't have done that," the dragon rumbled. "Not for me." Lena shrugged. "I had extra credits from last night's shift. And I figured, well, we've all been stuck in a line before." His pupils shrank, then widened again. "You're sent. You are from Sol. Earth?" "Yeah. 3rd-gen Martian-born, technically. My folks immigrated here during the last surge." He nodded, as if that meant something. Then he bowed, slowly, like someone dredging memory from bones that have forgotten how to kneel. "Your kindness is not small," he said, "though it seems so." Before she could respond, he turned and vanished into the alley beyond the food stands, moving with surprising quietness for something his size. Lena blinked after him, puzzled, then looked down at the receipt. Her transaction showed only one line of text. "Paid in full, recognition logged." She didn't think much of it then. She should have. Work was slow that day. Her dispatch terminal kept glitching, and the central coordinator was out sick. She ran diagnostics, pushed updates, swore at the coffee machine until it spat out something hot and slightly less bitter than regret. Then the comms array fritzed out around noon, and by the time she stabilized the router, The screens were flooded with garbled Elote script. That's when things got weird. First, her personal comm rang, a rare occurrence in itself. Then came the voice, mechanical, heavily filtered, but unmistakably alien. Human Lena Evren, stand by for contact. She frowned. Contact by who? What the hell? Your kindness has been marked by the 12. Do not resist. The line went dead. She stared at the screen. Then at her comm, then at the little potted moss she kept on her desk for luck. Even that looked confused. Okay, she muttered. Definitely burnout. She packed up early. Her manager wasn't even in, and no one else cared. Outside, the sky had gone darker than usual. Not stormy. No, the color was wrong. Too green. Too layered. Like something was refracting the light that shouldn't be. Lena took the express hover tram toward District 8, her fingers wrapped around the hand grip, heart thumping just slightly too fast. When she got off at her stop, the air tasted metallic. The old man who usually sold noodles from a float cart was gone. So were the 3 kids who played hologame tournaments by the bench every afternoon. The street was quiet. Not empty, just held. Like it was waiting. She reached her building. Paused. Then looked up. 12. 12 Elote warships, sleek, bone-white, shaped like arrowheads dipped in oil, hovered in the sky above her apartment block. No weapons deployed. No alarms. Just silent, massive, and perfectly still. A moment passed, then a second, and then they began to descend, one by one, toward her. Lena didn't move. Couldn't. Her breath caught somewhere between disbelief and dread. Because in that stillness, before the chaos began, before any explanation, she remembered the dragon's eyes, and how they hadn't looked at her like she was just a girl on a planet with a fading future. They had looked at her like she was a key, or a trigger, or maybe both. The ships didn't land so much as suspend themselves like stars caught in low orbit, humming softly above her 6-story apartment block. From below, Lena could see their underbellies were covered in rotating geometric patterns, Elote glyphs maybe, or military seals, though none she recognized. No weapons ports opened. No ramp descended. But her personal comm lit up again, this time projecting a tight holographic band around her wrist. Lena Evren of Soul Lineage, the voice repeated. You have extended honor. The 12 respond. I didn't do anything, she said out loud. Voice caught between panic and confusion. A voice behind her answered. That's where you're wrong. Lena spun. The speaker was a man, well, humanoid, broad-shouldered, wearing what looked like the remnants of a formal envoy coat, the kind worn by peace envoys and trade diplomats. The threads shimmered faintly, as if reacting to her attention. He looked mostly human except for the vertical slits that replaced his pupils and a faint shimmer along his jawline that hinted at nanomesh implants. Who are you? She demanded. I'm here to make sure you don't accidentally start a war, he said cheerfully. Name's Arlen, liaison for the Interpolity Stability Accord. But that's not important right now. Okay, she said, raising her hands. Maybe none of this is important right now, because I bought a dragon a bottle of mineral water and 3 apples, and now I got enough firepower above my building to take out a moon. Arlen gave her a look that managed to be both impressed and mildly horrified. You bought groceries for General Zerithvel, vanquisher of 4 systems, and exiled prime flame of the other front. I just saw an old dragon at a fruit stand. And now 12 Elote ships have initiated the right of return above your dwelling. Do you have any idea how many interstellar laws that potentially violates? She blinked. Why would they care? Arlen looked at her as if she'd just licked a plasma conduit. Because the Elote don't gift the right of return, not even to their own. It's a sacred response, a return of honor owed. It's not ceremonial. It's binding. And apparently, you now have the loyalty of a disgraced war god who still has loyalists tucked in every spiral arm of the galaxy. Lena staggered back a step. Her knees didn't buckle, but only barely. But I didn't ask for this. You didn't have to. That's the point. You honored someone they'd cast down. That means they have to acknowledge it. Tradition demands it. Above them, the ships began to hum louder. Not threatening, but reverent. Like a choir. The street around them had gone eerily silent. No neighbors in the windows. No police drones. The area had been quarantined, probably by the Elote themselves. Okay, Lena said, rubbing her forehead. What happens now? That depends, Arlen said. Do you want to rule a star sector, be assassinated, or possibly trigger a diplomatic incident that collapses the fragile peace we've built since the Scorch War? I'm going to go with none of the above, she muttered. Well, Arlen replied, you better come with me anyway. He led her to a parked shuttle a few blocks over. It was camouflaged as a delivery craft, but the inside was gleaming with adaptive tech and fast response protocols. The moment the doors shut behind them, she felt the pressure of an active distortion field hum around her. They took off straight up. From the air, Lena saw the neighborhood grid, now wrapped in soft blue perimeter lines, quarantine walls. The Elote had deployed them faster than any governmental force could have reacted. 12 ships floated above the block like silent watchers, awaiting a signal. They're not doing anything yet, Lena said. Just waiting. They're waiting for you, Arlen confirmed. Or more precisely, for your answer. What answer? To his debt. Arlen turned toward her, voice lower now. The dragon you helped? He wasn't just exiled. He was erased. His name was stripped from their records after he refused to ignite the civilian moons of Vel Atres during the Etherfront campaign. The Elote consider that treason. But his followers, those who survived, see him as something else. A martyr. An ideal. The last true Flameborn. So what? Helping him buys me a rebellion? No. Worse. Arlen swallowed. It buys you his redemption. The words sank in slowly. Lena sat back in the cushioned jump seat, the view outside shifting as they cleared the first cloud layer. Why me? She asked finally. Because no one else ever showed him kindness, Arlen said simply. You did. Publicly. Unconditionally. That act gets logged, even if you didn't know it. And the Elote? They're bound by ancient laws. The moment he acknowledged you became his patron. Lena gave him a blank stare. I don't want to be a dragon's patron. Arlen smiled sadly. It's not about what you want. It's about what the galaxy now sees you as. She was quiet after that, until the ship rocked violently. Was that? Missile lock, barked a voice from the comms. What? Lena shouted. Arlen cursed under his breath. I knew this was going to happen. What do you mean, missile lock? Who's firing? Someone who doesn't want Zareth Vel to rise again. The shuttle jolted hard as a kinetic burst glanced off their shielding. Warning klaxon screamed. Lena's ears popped as the cabin pressure adjusted. The pilot, a three-armed Threnari with iridescent scales, yelled over the static. They're not Elote ships. Signature reads Varkellen privateers. Lena's mind whirled. The Varkellen Syndicate. Mercenaries, hired guns, and smugglers. But more importantly, they'd fought against the Elote during the late wars. And if they were here now, another blast rocked the side of the shuttle. A second ship, a sleek, fong-shaped interceptor, swung up alongside them, weapons bays open. They're trying to capture her, the pilot barked. Not on my shift, Arlen muttered. He lunged to a weapons panel and punched a code into the override. A compartment opened beneath Lena's seat, revealing a shielded pod barely big enough for a human. Arlen turned to her, eyes hard. Get in. Now. What? It's a covert escape drop. Leads to a diplomatic safe house on the planet. You need to survive this. What about you? I've danced with pirates before. You, Lena, have 12 warships waiting on your next breath. So go. The ship rocked again. Heat surged along the outer plating. Lena looked at the pod, then at Arlen, and dove in. The hatch closed. The latches sealed. Darkness. Then pressure. G-force. The unmistakable lurch of high-speed atmospheric re-entry. As the pod shot down through the sky like a comet, Lena clutched the inner rails, heart hammering, teeth clenched. Below her, somewhere, was a diplomatic safe house. Above her, 12 warships still waited. And somewhere between them was a question no one had dared ask in over a century. What happens when a human girl becomes the dragon's chosen? The pod shook harder. Heat flared. Impact alarms chirped. And then, blackout. Lena woke up gasping. The pod had split open like a peeled fruit. Emergency foam softened her landing, but everything hurt her ribs, her head, her sense of orientation. The sky above was still streaked with violet-orange from atmospheric scatter, but she was no longer on the streets of District 8 or floating in orbit. She was somewhere remote. Trees, not real, but terraformed composites, swayed around her in an artificial wind. A camouflaged dome rose behind the thicket. The diplomatic safe house, she guessed. The door irised open, scanning her face before chirping a soft, clearance-matched, sole lineage civilian, special circumstance in a gentle automated tone. She stumbled inside. The interior was modest, metal and biotex furniture, low lighting, and a comms interface on the far wall. A medical scanner hovered toward her like a concerned nurse. "No, I'm fine," she rasped. "I think. Maybe. Just a hydration straw pushed toward her mouth." She sipped without argument, letting the mineral-rich liquid cool her throat. Then the screen blinked on. It was Arlen. His coat was torn, his lip bleeding. "Lena," he said, clearly breathless, "you're alive." "Thank the void." "You too," she replied. "I thought." "I'm not out of the woods yet," he interrupted. "They sent more ships. Not just Varkellen. Someone's coordinating them. Someone who wants the dragon dead before this loyalty bond takes root." Lena flinched. "So what do I do now?" "Hi." "Wrong," a voice said behind her. She spun. The old dragon stood in the doorway. But he was not frail. He was glowing. His dull, rusted scales now shimmered faintly like starlight over black stone. The fractures along his horns had fused. His wings were still torn, but held strength. In his left hand, a hand, now shaped more like a gauntlet claw, he carried a long staff of polished obsidian wrapped in gold rings. Zareth Vel, once exiled and forgotten, looked reborn. Lena backed up a step. You awakened it," he said. She blinked. "Awaken what?" "The bonfire," he rumbled, stepping closer. "It is ancient, older than their fleet, older than the exile. A connection forged by honor, freely given. A loyalty contract, but also a transference." "Transference of what?" she whispered. He looked at her, and something in his eyes wasn't just reverence. It was awe. "Of legacy," he said. "Of title. Of power." She shook her head. No. I didn't ask for this. I gave you lunch. I didn't sign a galactic blood oath." Zareth Vel smiled faintly. "Intent does not govern destiny. The rite has begun." Before she could object again, a low warning tone buzzed in the air. The safe house's perimeter lights flared red. "Unidentified craft approaching," the AI warned. "ETA 2 minutes. Can't you stop them?" Lena snapped at the system. "Defense grid is offline. Hostile codes identified as internal Eloten override signatures. Authority match found. Zareth Vel." She turned to the dragon. "They're your people?" He shook his head. "They were. Once. But not now." Outside, through the one-way viewing slit, she saw them. 4 sleek drop vessels descending with surgical precision. Their hulls bore Eloten imperial sigils, crossed out with crimson slashes. "Rebels. Not all Elotes support the right," Zareth Vel said. "Some would see the old traditions burned before they allow a human to hold the bond." Lena's pulse spiked. "So what happens when they get here?" "They will kill you," he said calmly. "You got to work on your delivery," she muttered. "Not if I invoke the rite of flame-born ascension," he said. She stared. "The what now?" "It's a ritual, rare, ancient. If performed before witnesses, it binds your essence to the legacy of the Flameborn. It gives you his status, his protection. I don't want status, but you need it, or they'll tear this dome apart and drag your bones across their star charts as a warning." She swallowed. "And what if I say no?" Zareth Vel looked down. "Then I will die shielding you. But it will not be enough." Silence. Outside, the engines of the incoming ships roared. Inside, the dome dimmed. Lena clenched her fists. "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. "No," he said gently. "That's why it matters." She exhaled, long, shaky. "Then what do I have to do?" The center of the dome retracted, revealing a round chamber engraved with ancient Eloten script, swirls and glyphs glowing faintly red. The dragon stepped into the circle. Lena followed, legs trembling. He raised the staff. "Repeat after me." And so she did. The words weren't in any language she knew, but they burned in her throat like fire, like stars dying, like worlds being forged. Her body lit with heat. Her vision blurred. She didn't feel human anymore. She felt like something other. When the final word left her lips, the circle exploded with light. The staff dissolved into shards of flame and spiraled into her chest. Lena screamed, and then silence. When she opened her eyes, she was still standing. But something had changed. Her skin shimmered faintly with lines of gold. Her heartbeat felt louder, no bigger, as if she pulsed in harmony with something beyond the sky. Zarethvel knelt before her and said, "You are flame-born now." The dome shuddered. They came in fast, elite Elotan shock troops, gliding down with electro swords and impact shields. The doors were breached. Sirens blared. Lena turned toward the entrance. Zarethvel stood beside her, one hand now holding a conjured flame blade that pulsed with phoenix light. "Do not command them," he said. "Lead them." She raised her hand instinctively. A barrier flared into being, pure will, forged from the bond. The first attacker slammed into it and fell back, screaming as his armor glowed red-hot. The second hesitated, then knelt. The others followed. One by one, the invading Elotan soldiers knelt before her. Zarethvel bowed his head just slightly. "They see it now." "What?" "You carry the flame." Lena couldn't speak. Outside, the warships above her apartment rotated. Their lights shifted from white to gold. Recognition. Allegiance. Then a transmission blinked onto the comm screen from one of the 12 warships. It was a live feed. An Elotan admiral appeared, silver-plated, eyes like polished obsidian, his mandibles twitching nervously. "Flameborn," he said in a voice that trembled with respect. "Forgive our delay. We now await your command." Lena stared at the screen, then at her glowing hand, then at the army kneeling before her. She'd paid for someone's groceries, and now she commanded 12 warships, and a people desperate for purpose. She opened her mouth to answer, but then the entire dome exploded outward as a sonic warhead struck from orbit. Everything went white, and then dark. The sound was gone. All Lena could feel was heat deep in her chest, raw and flickering like it was trying to breathe inside her. The world came back in pieces. Searing light, distant static, smoke curling in ribbons. The safe house was gone, vaporized, but she was still alive, because something had shielded her. Not something, someone. Zarethvel was crouched over her, his wings half unfurled, singed and cracked, his entire left side scorched. He trembled, his breath shallow. Her skin was covered in dust and cracked metal, but she was unburnt. "Zareth," she whispered, voice breaking. "I held the flame as long as I could," he rasped. "No, no, no," she said, pulling his head toward her lap, her fingers trembling as they brushed his shattered horns. He opened one eye, dim but still glowing. "They used orbital payloads, weapons not sanctioned by the 12. That means it is no longer internal." Lena understood immediately. This wasn't just a rogue Elotan faction. It was a coalition. Someone had pulled strings, hired mercenaries, bribed admirals, or worse, unleashed sleeper agents within the 12. They hadn't just tried to erase the right. They tried to kill it before it could stand. And Zarethvel had stood in its way. "Again, don't die on me," she choked. "Not after all this. Not now." His hand rose, gently brushing her arm. "I am only fire. You are the Flameborn now. You must light the stars, girl, or they will go dark." His arm dropped. Lena screamed. The ground around her responded. Flames erupted. Not natural, not chemical, but ancient, golden, wild. They coiled around her in spirals, casting her form in silhouette. Her eyes burned molten bright, and then she rose, floated just slightly, hovering inches above the shattered stone. Because the right wasn't done, not until it was defended. She turned her gaze to the sky. Above, the enemy had revealed itself. A 13th ship, sleeker, darker, unlike the others. Varkellen, but with unknown modifications, cloaked in adaptive plating, emitting no identifiable signature. That was the source of the warhead. That was the hand pulling the strings. A new transmission crackled through the still-active comm line in her vambrace. A face appeared, half Arkellan, half synthetic. Cold, sharp, and unmistakably familiar. Lena frowned. "Commander Hale," she said aloud. The face smiled. "So you do remember me." Commander Hale had been one of the human liaisons during her brief academy training cycle, a man who'd once spoken about diplomacy, unity, progress. He was supposed to have died in the Battle of Tirith's Scar. But now, "You're dead," Lena whispered. "Dead to bureaucracy," Hale replied, very much alive in vision. "You planned this." "Planned?" Hale laughed. "No, Lena. I anticipated. The galaxy is stagnant, bound by superstition, ruled by ghosts. The flame-born legacy? A relic. I simply made sure no embers would reignite. You try to murder civilians," she spat. "They were fanatics. And so are you now." Lena's fists clenched. He continued, "We cannot afford to return to the age of warlords and oaths. The Elote are a fractured people, but if one like you rises, human, uncontrollable, new, they might unify again. We cannot risk that." "Then you've already lost," she said coldly, because he had no idea what he'd just given her. Hale's brow furrowed, and then she vanished. Teleportation wasn't supposed to be possible unaided, but this wasn't technology. It was legacy. Flameborn rights worked through the will of the bonded. She didn't appear in his control room. She appeared in the outer hull of the 13th ship, standing barefoot on the metal skin, flames wrapping around her body like armor. The vacuum didn't touch her. Her flame was her air. She raised her hand. 12 warships still hovered, watching. Unsure. Then her voice rang out, not in air, but through quantum-anchored comms, coded and ancestral, keyed into Elotan bloodlines. "I am Flameborn," she said, "bearer of the right. You have seen me. You have knelt. Now rise." The warships obeyed. One by one, their shields flared, their weapons armed. Commander Hale's ship pivoted away, trying to retreat. Too late. The 12 vessels opened fire in perfect, devastating synchronicity. Hale's modified cruiser dodged the first volley, cloaking systems flaring. Then Lena struck. She lunged forward, flame trailing from her hands, and punched through the starboard stabilizer. The hull ruptured like an egg. Hale's scream was silenced by the roar of vented atmosphere. The ship tumbled powerless, and then she grabbed it, her arms wrapped in sunfire, her hair a comet tail. She dragged the collapsing ship back toward the planet. The wreck burned on re-entry, a funeral pyre in reverse. She let go just before impact. It crashed in the old industrial zone, far from civilians, close enough to be seen by all. A warning, a promise. Lena landed in the wreckage, smoke curling around her. The soldiers who had survived Hale's regime crawled out and, seeing her, knelt. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. She was the flame. Hours later, she stood again at the site where the safe house had once been. Zareth Vel's body had been recovered. He lay in a stone circle, his form glowing softly, peacefully. Arlen approached, bandaged and bruised. "You look like a god," he muttered. "I'm not," she said. "Just a girl who paid for groceries." He smiled, and then burned a rebellion into the history books. The surviving Elotan captains joined her, their helmets lowered, their knees bent. They awaited only one thing, her command. She looked down at her hands, then at the broken stars, then at Zareth Vel, and her voice, when it came, was steady. "We won't burn the galaxy. We'll light it. A new path, a new age, forged in fire, yes, but led by humanity, and by a kindness no one ever expected would matter." The story broke across the networks before sunrise. Every known system, from the trade hubs of Jupiter's moons to the gas mines of Vargan, 12, buzzed with variations of the same headline. Human civilian becomes flameborn. 12 Elotan warships swear allegiance. Other versions were less poetic, more brutal. Flame reignites. Dragon's Chosen destroys rogue coalition fleet. Zareth Vel's legacy lives in a human girl. Varkellan Commander Hale declared renegade. Human Unity Council in emergency session. Lena couldn't read them. She was too busy helping pull civilians out of the rubble from the industrial crash zone where Hale's cruiser had gone down. Emergency responders were days late, too slow, too confused by the appearance of military vessels suddenly guarding the site. 12 Elote ships hovered in peaceful formation above the city, sending assistance pods and mobile healers. The chaos had passed, but the aftershocks rippled through the colony's every corner. And Lena Everin, the girl who once believed in gravity and street food and quiet evenings, was no longer anonymous. She couldn't be. Not after what she'd done. Not after what she'd become. Arlen met her outside the recovery tents, cradling a bruised rib and sipping from a hydration pack. "You know," he said, "I always suspected you had potential. Was it the emergency ramen every lunch or the fact that I ignored you for the first 5 minutes when we met? No. It was the part where you lit up like a dying sun and dragged a Varkellan battleship from the sky with your bare hands." Lena gave him a weary look. That was kind of impressive. Understatement of the year. She sat down next to him on a pile of unused med sheets. "I still feel like I'm standing in someone else's story." "You're not," Arlen said. "You just inherited a legacy that nobody wanted, and now you're the only one who can rewrite it." Lena looked at the skyline, once gray and sluggish, now rimmed with the golden glow of Elote lightships maintaining peaceful orbit. She thought of Zareth Vel's last words, of the bond they'd shared, the right that couldn't be broken. "I didn't understand any of this," she whispered. "Not at first, but you understand it now." She nodded. "I thought kindness was small, a gesture, a nothing. Turns out, it's a chain reaction waiting to happen." Arlen chuckled. "Kindness is the most volatile thing in the universe. The galaxy just forgot how to handle it." The 12 gathered the next day in person. A rare event. Each ship sent its representative, cloaked in ceremonial armor, bearing data plates and energy staffs. The sight alone caused traffic to stop, news drones to flood the air, and a dozen governments to issue cautious statements. But they weren't here for war. They were here for her. The ceremony was held in what remained of the Elote Cultural Center, damaged by time and bureaucratic neglect, now swiftly restored with nanite crews and flame metal banners. Thousands gathered, human and alien alike, to witness what came next. Lena stood in the center of the amphitheater. The heat of the flame-born bond pulsed gently under her skin, no longer painful, just present, like a heartbeat she shared with something older than time. A senior captain approached her, Admiral Kellear, scales polished like obsidian, voice like smooth thunder. "You carry what we cast away," he said solemnly, "and you burn brighter than we dare to hope." Lena nodded. "Then we stop casting things away. From now on, we protect, not dominate." One by one, the 12 dropped to one knee, not as conquerors, but as loyalists. A new oath was spoken by them, not to a warlord, not to a tyrant, but to a flame of compassion, rekindled in a human girl who once thought small things didn't matter. Lena didn't speak after that. She just raised her hand. The flame responded. A pulse of light spread from her fingers across the sky. It wasn't destructive. It was hopeful. A new beacon encoded with nonviolent protocols, a signal the galaxy hadn't seen in over 200 years, the Flameborn Accord. The signal reached relay beacons in under 5 minutes. Within hours, fringe systems began to respond. A dozen Elote colonies sent requests to parley. Even Varkellan ships, rogue remnants once allied with Hale, sent surrender codes, accompanied by messages of confusion and awe. She'd changed something, and it was just beginning. In the days that followed, Lena was offered everything. Positions of power, diplomatic immunity, a seat on the Galactic Concord, fortunes. She turned most of it down. Instead, she created the first interspecies outreach fleet since the Burning Truce collapsed. 12 ships, each assigned to a region in need, not for conquest, but restoration. Peacekeepers and mediators, engineers and translators. Led not by admirals, but by people who remembered what it meant to be overlooked. One of the ships was named the Zareth Star, its emblem a dragon coiled in fire, carrying an apple. Lena traveled on that ship, often incognito, walking marketplaces, trading stories, listening to children sing in languages she didn't know. She paid for groceries when she could, left messages carved into metal. Small things. But the galaxy remembered small things now, and it was changing because of them. Late one night, aboard the Zareth Star, she stood alone in the observation chamber. The stars glittered, cold and distant. But she didn't feel small. Not anymore. A soft voice broke her reverie. "You burn quieter these days," Arlen said, stepping beside her. "Learn to keep the fire banked," she replied with a smile. "Where to next?" "Edge of the Thalian wastes. There's a settlement there. No law, no light. Thought I'd bring a little of both." Arlen nodded. "And if they resist?" "They won't," she said. "I'll pay for someone's groceries." He laughed. "Still your favorite strategy. Still the only one that ever worked." She turned toward the stars. Somewhere out there, whole civilizations still simmered in silence, waiting to be seen. She would find them. Not as a god, not even as a leader, but as a girl who'd once thought she was ordinary, until the universe reminded her that kindness is the first spark of everything. And sometimes all it takes is a bag of fruit, a bottle of water, and the courage to care. Somewhere far, far away, beneath the surface of a long-forgotten moon, an ancient system blinked online. Golden light traced through underground stone. A dormant forge ignited, and an automated voice, long buried, whispered in a tongue only a Flameborn would understand. Candidate identified. Next trial initializing. The Flameborn Accord spread faster than any council directive, any imperial decree. It didn't move through bureaucracies or strategic command centers. It moved through stories. It passed through refugees on freighters, engineers in asteroid belts, traders at border markets who'd once feared stopping on Elote soil. Now they saw the Flameborn sigil hanging beside every landing pad. And they landed. Lena's actions became legend, even as she still breathed. In orbit above Ganymede's scarred colonies, one of the warships from the original 12 lit its beacon and activated the Flame Accord protocols, evacuating 4,000 colonists before their dome collapsed. The commander cited Flameborn Protocol 3, compassion before authority. In the shattered remains of the drift reaches, a Varkellan warlord surrendered without bloodshed. He didn't understand what had changed until one of his own officers told him, "She lit the sky and didn't burn us. What if we're worth saving too?" And on Earth, old quiet Earth, where few ships landed anymore and the oceans still tried to recover from their scars, a child found a transmission shard washed up on a blackened shore. It played a short message. "I was just a girl. I paid for his groceries. The rest was up to the fire." The child didn't know what it meant. Not yet, but she would, because humanity had left its mark not with conquest, but with witness. Lena never returned to a normal life. That kind of life didn't exist for people who bore living fire in their chest and had knelt dragons bow to them. But she carved a new path. She made something that hadn't existed before, the Flameborn Coalition. 12 ships became 50. 50 became hundreds. Not a military fleet, a movement. Volunteers came from every species, Elote, Varkellan, Sarthari, even Thrinari pulse weavers. They trained not in warfare, but in restoration, in diplomacy, in holding the line between old violence and fragile peace. The motto etched onto every vessel was simple. Kindness is the catalyst. Universities debated the phrase. Enemies mocked it. The desperate believed in it. For the first time in centuries, ancient empires asked to listen rather than lead. Humanity was no longer the noisy newcomer species at the edges of galactic charts. They were at the center of something primal, something that stretched back through Elotan ancestral codes, Varkellan honor debts, and beyond. And it all started with a girl from District 8. But nothing ripples forever without striking distant shores. 3 years after the Flameborn Rite was rekindled, deep space scanners in the Hordan Fringe picked up anomalies, old signals, buried under collapsed time folds. Ancient ships, long thought destroyed, were awakening. The name whispered on the encrypted frequencies? The Forgotten Flame. When Lena heard it, she didn't flinch. She simply sat in her quarters aboard the Zareth Star, watching the stars tick by, her hands folded in her lap. "They're responding," Arlen said quietly from the doorway. "To what?" "To you." She shook her head. "No, to what I inherited." "You think it's about him?" "I think it was always bigger than one dragon," she said. "He was the last spark. But I was the first matchstick someone struck in the dark. And now others are remembering." Arlen walked closer, pausing by the viewport. "Are we ready for what wakes up next?" Lena gave a small, knowing smile. "Probably not." Then she rose. "But that's what humans are best at, right? Facing things we're not ready for. And choosing to care anyway." In time, statues were built. Not of her face, that was the first thing she forbade, but of her gesture. A human hand extended outward, palm open, not in threat, not in command, but in offering. Beneath the statue, on over 70 colony worlds, the inscription was the same in every language. Honor is not power. Power is not fear. The flame lives in kindness. And across the stars, stories drifted like embers, twisting, retold, reshaped. Some said she tamed dragons. Others claimed she was born of starlight, or that her fire came from the core of a collapsed sun. Some whispered that she didn't exist at all, that she was just a metaphor. But then someone would point at the sky as a golden beacon flared overhead. An Elote ship reconditioned as a peace vessel, circling in protective silence. And they'd say, "No, she's real. I heard she stopped a war with a grocery receipt." Children drew her in chalk and ash. Soldiers tattooed her crest over old wounds. Disgraced nobles prayed to her in secret. Merchants left food near statues just in case she walks past. And always, always, someone lit a candle in the dark, hoping she'd come again. One day, many years later, a quiet signal hummed to life from a place older than language. A construct embedded beneath the crust of an unnamed planet powered up, its ancient gears turning. A voice, synthesized yet somehow familiar, echoed in the vast chamber. Flameborn confirmed. Humanity recognized. Sequence, Phase 2. A door opened. Inside, a map of the stars that had not been seen in 5,000 years. And a message in carved starlight. The first fire was survival. The second, conquest. The third must be hope. Somewhere, aboard a ship lit with gold, Lena felt a chill. Not fear. Recognition. Something old had noticed her. And it was waking. Centuries passed. Empires fell. Names changed. But the stories remained. In the silence between galaxies, where darkness breathes and forgotten gods slumber, one phrase lingered among the stars. Human, don't stop. And the stars remembered.